Hi everybody, welcome to All Games New and Old. I'm David Rodriguez, and today we're going to be reviewing Lawyer Up. This was published in 2021 by Rock Manor Games and is designed by Samuel Bailey and Mike Gnade. Now, in this game, you're going to be deciding the fate of someone who is on trial for a crime as either the prosecution or as the defense. You're going to play cards to string together an argument using evidence and all kinds of various legal maneuvers to get your way. You can do sidebars with the judges. You can, of course, yell for an objection, but you're really trying to sway those jurors over to your side by the end. So I usually have a special guest for this, and unfortunately lawyer fees are really expensive. They want a lot of money for their time. So I wasn't able to get a lawyer guest, but I do have a lawyer commercial that might possibly be useful to gamers. So let's check it out. Hello. Have you found yourself in a little bit of board game related legal trouble? Well, the law offices of the Inconveniencer and the Annoyer can help. Have you perhaps replaced your friend's miniatures in his board game with meeples? Have you invited someone over to play Kingdom Death Monster only to replace it with Monopoly? Have you taken hours upon hours just deciding what your next move is? Have you taken an action without paying a resource for it? Or have you perhaps cheated just a tiny little bit to win? Have you dropped Gloomhaven on someone? Well, don't worry. We can help you out. The law firm of the Inconveniencer and the Annoyer is here to help people with all their board game related crimes. If you're worried that the defense will be too mean to you, or perhaps the jury or the judge won't see things in the light that you truly deserve to have them seen in, don't worry. We'll take care of them. Oh, that's really ominous. I'm not really sure how he got to be a lawyer in the first place, so you know what, let's just go to our gameplay overview. Alright, I don't think we're probably going to keep having lawyer commercials on this particular channel, but anyway, I hope the overview I gave you earlier was helpful. But now we're going to talk about the gameplay specifically. So in this game, you're going to pick the scenario you want to play, and there are going to be different rules depending on the scenario you pick. So I'm going to give you kind of like the basic general overview, but different scenarios are going to do some different things. But you're going to pick a judge for your case. Some of them could be biased, in which case you can't object to an argument made with the bias symbol that they have on their picture. And that judge is going to kind of flip back and forth from favoring the prosecution to the defense throughout the game. You're going to get your jurors out. Some of the scenarios will give you really specific ones you have to put out. And then each player is going to start with a deck of cards. One is, of course, the prosecution, the other the defense. And then you're going to go through the deck of cards specific to the case you're doing, and you're going to draft cards. You're going to pull one for yourself, one for your opponent, and one for the buried evidence deck, which could come back up later, but may not. Once you've done that, you're going to start playing. And so the first person who is favored by the judge, which is generally the prosecution unless your scenario says otherwise, is going to call the first witness. They can call any witness they want to. They're going to put them down in the middle, and from that point, the players are going to take turns going back and forth, playing out cards from their hand. And these represent evidence, arguments, and procedures. Now, the only rule is the witness has some symbols along the side of their card that will show what kind of arguments bias will work against them or with them. And so the first card you play has to match at least one of those symbols. And the next card you play on your side has to match a symbol that on the card you just played. So you have to keep doing that. And thematically, that is stringing together an argument that makes sense, so you're not just blurring out random bizarre stuff. And as you're going, when you play an argument, your opponent could choose to turn over one of their objection tokens. They can shout objection if they want to, and that'll make you discard that particular argument card and play another one again. You only have 3 of those the whole game, so it's important that you're careful about those.
And you're limited to 1 objection per witness, too.
Absolutely. So then another action you could do is you could call for a sidebar if your sidebar token hasn't been exhausted. That will turn the judge's favor to you and also allow you to draw a card, which could be kind of nice if you're not sure what you should play down. Another thing you can do is you could play a procedure in front of you, which is something that doesn't go off yet, but it'll have an effect that can go off at a later time when you take an action to actually activate your procedure.
And normally you need the judge to be in your favor to actually do the action on the procedure too.
Yeah, very often that seems to be the case. I think
Yeah.
they don't want to let you if you're not if they're not liking you at the moment. So basically, you're going to go back and forth. Eventually, you'll find that you'll need to pass because there's nothing more that you can do or that you want to do. And then the other player, if they haven't passed yet, can continue to play out their turns until they two pass. Once they both pass, once both players pass, you go on to resolving the witness.
And once you're resolving the witness, it basically comes down to who has the most points at the end of that round. And you earn different points off of those cards that you had been playing throughout the round. So if the prosecution wins by 10 points, then they have 10 points to delegate out to the different biases. And depending on the scenario you are playing, it'll kind of change a little bit of how you're playing. So sometimes if it's a normal courtroom scene, each jury member will have a certain amount of points that it costs to sway their bias towards the prosecution or the defense. In like the witch trials, you have a mob and you're putting biases on different key witnesses. The other thing you get when you claim the witness is a lot of times there will be a victory condition that you get that can benefit you. Sometimes it benefits both players. There's also the last card you played down. Some of the cards you're playing down have a victory condition, and that only goes off if it's the last card that you played.
Yep, so that's pretty much it. Again, every scenario can end differently, but generally at the end, if your side has the most witnesses swayed, then you'll win, and of course the other side does not. But a lot of things can affect that, and as we mentioned, different scenarios can have some very different things going on, especially as you expand out beyond the base box. But that's the basics of how the game works.
Overall, I like the artwork in this game. I do find it a little bit strange, though, because they seem to have different art styles for different things. And not just different scenarios or cases in this game. Like, the witnesses and the judge have a lot different artwork than your evidence and, like, the cards that you're playing from your hand. And so it looks a little bit strange in the contrast of the art styles, in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I like all the art, actually, but it is kind of jarring that it is so different, and it's not even like a couple different artists that are trying to do a similar style, and you can just kind of tell a difference. Like, they're really different styles. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit weird. It's not necessarily bad, but I think a more unified art style might have been a little bit better in this case. But that being said, I really don't have complaints about the arts. I mean, occasionally there's a picture that's a little odd, I think. Especially when you get to the witch trial one. Like, I think it's all the same artist, but some of the characters I think are really very ugly, and some of them look really great. So it's kind of a strange thing. And I think it's just an artistic choice. But yeah, it's decent art, just sort of mixed. And so if you have strong preferences towards one type of art or another, there might be a chunk of cards that you just really don't like the look of in this set. Okay, so for the components, this game is mostly cards, and I think the cards are all pretty good. I think as far as the layout of the information that's on there, I think that's all pretty clear in general. The tokens that you do have are wooden, and they're really nice. They're round tokens, and occasionally I've had this roll away from me. Not so much during the game as much as when I'm trying to clean up and I knock one silly and then it goes somewhere and I have to find it. That's just a me issue. I don't, you may not have an issue where that becomes a problem for you, but there it is. If you're playing on a game table that has like a rim to it, obviously that won't be a problem at all. We just didn't happen to play this game on that kind of table. But they're nice, and they've got, a little bit of artwork on them, some, basic stuff. One has like the word bubbles for the sidebar with the judge, and then you have the gavel and whatever the thing is called that the gavel hits. I don't remember. Is there a name for that? I'm not even sure. But those are on your objection tokens. But no complaints about the art. One thing that's great too is the game comes with dividers for like the prosecution deck, the defendant or the defense deck, and the different cases, which is great because having played a lot of Fantasy Flight's living card games lately, why aren't there dang freaking dividers in those? Anyway, but this one has dividers, so good on you, Rock Manor Games. Nicely done. What do you think?
I think the components are decent. The decks are pretty basic. I wish they had just a little bit more texture for them. When I was shuffling the deck, they would kind of get away from me a little bit more than I like, but I'm sure if we played it a lot more, then as we were shuffling more often, they would probably wouldn't be as slippery, so. Overall, I think they did a good job of incorporating the theme into the game. It definitely does have some of that feel of prosecution versus the defense. There's a few things that are a little bit strange, like the judge changing bias depending on who lost the last round. And some of like the neutral cards are pretty swaying heavily towards one side or the other, even though they're considered a neutral card.
Yeah, it's interesting because it does feel like you're doing this like whole courtroom thing, but there are some things that are a little bit strange. I'm not sure if this company is based in the United States. It might not be, but for instance, I don't think in the U.S. courts anyway that the defense and the prosecution takes turns asking like individual questions. Usually like one side goes and then the other side goes, which I understand that for a game that would be really boring to sit there and wait for someone to play out like this gigantic turn. So it's good that they did it this way. But there's some strange things with that. And yeah, the judge, switching favor all over the place constantly is a little bizarre. I mean, maybe that happens. I don't know. I'm sure the judges don't go like, I like you now. But, and when you call witnesses, it's based on who the judge is currently favoring, which again, not how it works, at least in the U.S. legal system. So there's weird stuff like that don't quite fit with the theme that they're trying to do. But that being said, overall, I do think it captures the theme pretty well. I do feel like there is like a little courtroom battle going on, even if it doesn't perfectly match up with how courtrooms actually play out. Okay, for final thoughts, I picked this time to do this review because right now they're doing a season 2 of this on GameFound. There'll be about a week left when this video gets published. And then, I don't know, I think it's going to go to retail anyway at some point, so hopefully it'll be good down the road too. But if you're trying to make that final decision, maybe this will help. I think the new season has like 3 or 4 new separate cases you can buy, and of course you can get all the original stuff too. So, I like playing this game. I think, I'm usually having fun doing it. I do like, we tend to get into character a little bit. And, try to justify what's happening on the card or what it's saying on the card with what we're actually doing, which is a lot of fun. I think that really adds to the game. So if you're the type that likes to do that, by all means, I recommend it. I think it really adds a lot. But there are some kind of problems with this game, I think. After the plays we've done, one, it feels pretty random. Your hand of cards that you get on any turn, you're almost definitely every turn going to play every one of those cards you possibly can. So how well you do is a big part dependent on just how your deck is shuffled and what you get in your hand. There are things that you could do to mess things up, like, if you want to do an objection, that can mess up somebody's plans, that sort of thing. And there's some strategy there. I don't mean to say that it's a totally random game, but you could certainly lose just because you just didn't get great cards. That is going to happen to you sometimes. Or the other person just got way better cards, and it's kind of tough that way. Some of the cards will let you kind of mitigate your luck, which is great, or bring more cards into your hand, but some of those are even random, so you're not really sure if you're going to get anything that's helpful, or if it's just going to be like, well, I got a card, and maybe it's good, maybe it's not. And again, this could all be fine, and again, I do enjoy playing the game, but the problem is the level of randomness that has compared to the length of the game is a bit of an issue. This game, I feel like, really overstays its welcome. Even on the art theft case in the main box, the case 00, which has like 3 or 4 different ways you can play, and each one is a different length, even the short one there feels kind of too long for what's going on. You can get to a point where you feel like you're pretty far behind, and you might catch up, but it's not super likely. But even if you could, I just feel like, okay, how many times am I going to go through my hand and just play the cards that I have? I feel like I'm doing a separate puzzle, and she's doing a separate puzzle, and one of us is going to do our puzzle better, and that's going to be that. And Now, I could be wrong. I say that having lost her every time we played. So, there may be more skill than I'm giving it credit for, but that's how it feels to me, whether I'm being accurate or not. I just feel like there's no reason almost ever to not play every card you can unless it has a bad effect. And then at the end of your turn, you can discard that card and drop new cards again. So it's not like you're stuck with this bad card until you play it. So you might want to just play it at some point. Just hold on to it and get rid of it. And other than that, keep playing the cards you have to either lose by less or win by more. And that's what you're going to do pretty much every turn. So with that being said, I mean, if this game could be the same at all and still capture the theme and somehow be a half hour, and I realize that that's a lot of things that probably don't work together that well, I think it'd be fantastic. But, I think on the box it says an hour. I think even that shorter trial was probably about an hour play. And then the other ones only get more complex and longer, I believe. So that's kind of an issue. The different cases do add a lot of different twists, so that does give a lot of variety to this game. Like, you're going to have a very different feel depending on what case you're doing, which I really think is great. But again, regardless of that, they all still feel like they just go a little longer than they should. If this could be scaled back, I think it'd be great, but I feel like we got to the point where we knew what we were doing, and it still felt like it was too long. So I don't know how much faster we could possibly make it. I don't know if we could trim it down faster, or if we did, if that would even be enjoyable, because it'd be almost like trying to play some kind of crazy speed version of this game. So I'm going to kind of give a little bit of a split rating here, because when this game is at its best, when it really shines, like, I really enjoyed the witch trial one, even though that was pretty long, but I liked that thematically, and it just felt different and cool, and it was super close. I'd say it's about a 7, but in general, and we kind of have to look at that, because if you're going to buy the game, you're going to buy the game. It's probably more at about a 6. It's a game I definitely do enjoy, but I'm not going to be leaping to play it. And for the amount of time it takes, I'd probably rather play something where I feel like I've got a little more control over what's going on, even if that means I fail and it's my fault. Still, I would prefer that. So, decent game. I don't dislike it by any stretch, and I think it's better than average for sure, but a little too long for what it is. It's a 6 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. It wouldn't really fit thematically, but I almost wish it was like a best 2 out of 3 type of game, where there was just like 3, maybe 5 rounds. But some of these cases can go on and on and on, and especially the witch trial one, because there's a lot of back and forth, and I could see it ending quickly, but I think you have to be pretty lucky for it to end quickly. And then there's ways to kind of drag it out even longer than it's kind of initially meant for, which I think is kind of what ended up happening with our game, because I kept, one of the ending scenarios is the prosecution runs out of cards, and I was playing the prosecution, and I kept finding ways to add more cards into my deck, so I was able to keep dragging out the game until I won. But even though I won, because I had to keep dragging the game out in order for me to win, it ended up not being that much fun for me. And I kind of felt that way with almost all of them. For how long it takes, and I just wish it was a shorter game. There is some strategy to the game, but at the same time, even with some of the differences, the main difference would be the witch trials versus the other ones. Thematically, it's different, but the mechanics of playing the game is the same, and it starts getting kind of tiring to me. That mechanic gets tiring to me after a while, and so I just don't really want to play it past half an hour, 45 minutes, and none of the games that we played were anywhere close to being that short. So, for me, I'm gonna give it, I was kind of going back and forth between a 5 and a 6, so I think I'm leaning a little bit more towards a 5, just because, I felt like about halfway through the game on each game, I was just kind of like, are we done yet? And, it started taking the fun away from the game.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that. Even the Witch Trial one, which was my favorite scenario that we played, by the end, I was almost like, okay, I'm just going to take a stupid risk here and there just because, like, let's get this done with.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to work for me or it's going to work for you, but let's get this done with.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think it's an unfortunate thing, but that's what it was. So anyway, those are our scores, a 6 and a 5. Do with that what you will if you're eyeing that thing on GameFound. It's not the most expensive game, and if the things we said don't sound like they bother you, I mean, you might love it. I think it's a well constructed game. I think everything works. It's just a matter of whether or not that sounds like it's going to be enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will like the game. It's just for me, because of the length of the game, I'd rather play one of our other longer games.
Yeah, me too. Well, I do hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, please hit like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you can know about the next time we put out a video. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all around the table again at All Games New and Old.
Bye.
There's 12 of them, and we've been playing, or at least I've been playing a lot of different living card games for Final Fantasy. Damn it.
You did it this time.
Oh, my eye is pulsing. It is gross. I hope that's not visible on the camera. I can see it. I can see it here. I do think it captures the theme. If you like that video, you have no idea how much I respect your wise and intelligent opinion. And you might like this video.
Or this one.
Either way, if you want to go ahead and click this button to subscribe, we'd really appreciate it.
We'll see you around the table.
Bye.
Bye.